Hey, welcome back to our show. Our show is called A Year of Magical Learning. This is a show where we read a book, reflect on what we learned, and talk about it to learn a bit more. So today we have book 52. And book 52, Chris, why don't you introduce the book?
Yeah, so this one's a fun one, a unique book actually. It's called About Damn Time. Sorry, it's About Damn Time.
Mm.
How to Turn Being Underestimated into Your Greatest Advantage by Arlan Hamilton. So, a quick description of the book. It's about a gay black woman who broke into the Silicon Valley VC investor world. At one point in time, Arlan was living on food stamps and she was sleeping at the San Francisco airport and just had a dream and wanted to try to break into this world and build a VC firm that supported people that look like her, helping to fund technology startups and things like that, maybe minorities or gay and lesbian groups. And she ultimately succeeded and broke through and used a lot of her street smarts to navigate her way through the world, and ultimately she found success. Now, the fun part about the story of this book, my reflection has literally nothing to do with the book, actually. It has to do with a lot of other things that happened with this particular book. So the reflection title, I'll go ahead and share my screen, it's the compound effect of living your values in action. And here's why. So this actually, you guys all know Amanda Poole, or Nolte, I guess, as I call her. That was her maiden name. But Amanda, as we all know and love her, she's a challenger. She's not afraid to speak up. She's not afraid to challenge the status quo. And that's why I love her to death. She's amazing. She was one of our first club members, and she's somebody that's a really close friend of mine. And she's just a great person. If you guys have read my book, I know, True, I know you have. I don't know if you've finished Amanda, if anybody following along with this story and read my first story, it was the person that the day after, about a month after Amelia had passed away, she was one of the first friends that we had over to the house to kind of break the ice, re-engaging with the world with, kind of in a small dinner party that we had with, just a couple of good friends over. And, she was the one that within a minute or two of arriving, she was just like, look, guys, like, bluntly in the and Amanda talk, like, we don't have to sugarcoat this. We don't have to like hide away and not talk about it. Like, let's do this, So that really broke the ice on that whole conversation and ended up being a really great night. And, felt like the first time I felt somewhat sense of normalcy in my life since Amelia had passed away. And, it felt good just to talk about her and talk about what was going on in our world. And Amanda, being the challenging self that she is, brought that out. So in true Amanda fashion, that's where this book comes into play. If you remember when she was going through the quest and she was giving us feedback, she goes, I'm loving what I'm experiencing and everything, but at the same time, like, I feel like your guys, are forgetting about, there's no female authors in any of the books that we were reading. And, I know True and I both kind of stared at her blankly, like going like, well, crap. I didn't really ever think about that, to be honest with you. And we appreciated Amanda bringing that to the forefront. And, because of that, like, one of my core values is challenge, right? I took that feedback from Amanda and I went and I literally looked. I was about 80 books deep into this journey at that time. And I went and looked back at all the books that I had finished in the past, 8 months since Amelia had passed away, basically around that time. And I saw that only 3 of them were female authors. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, maybe she's onto something. Maybe I'm not like, I had a wide range. They weren't all just like white guys or something like that. But I to be fair, I wasn't looking at the authors ever. I was picking titles based off of, just wanting to learn something or what kind of appealed to me or whatever. But it wasn't necessarily like looking at it from a, need to get a certain perspective or whatever kind of thing. So, after Amanda challenged me on this one, I thought, hey, it's, I think it's a fair challenge and something I'm going to try to strive to correct. So this brings me full circle to It's About Damn Time, right? So this is the book that I actually had happened to stumble upon this in the past. I had added it to my anti-library. I had no intention of ever buying this book or reading this book or going through it at all. It just sounded interesting. And it was, slowly but surely falling down the anti-library list, I guess, as I went. And, after Amanda challenged me on this one, I was like, all right, let's do this. So I downloaded a book from a gay black woman. And, and actually the funny part about all this was Felicia loves diversity and inclusion, right? Efforts. So like, that's a big part of her life and a big thing that she cares about. So I comboed, once again, this is all the compound effect of living your values in action. Felicia and I, this is our first book that we read together as an audiobook together. Actually, we listened to it together. And so not only was I listening to a female driven book that was, by Amanda challenging me, I was including in my wife, we're listening to a completely different perspective of stuff that was really, that she cared about. Before I knew it, I found myself on Saturday morning for the next like 3 straight Saturdays, with my wife at the dinner table or at the breakfast table, listening to this book on an audiobook and doing it together and, you know, talking about it, having conversations. So fast forward to today, I feel like Felicia and I think we just finished our 12th book together recently as an audiobook. And I've found ways to incorporate more diverse learnings and different perspectives and backgrounds and a lot of the things I've been reading, which I hope comes across eventually in this whole journey. But yeah, that's about it. Wanted to highlight the slowly compounding, doing the activities day over day, the things you value, and then the weird place that it takes you of reading a book about a gay Black woman with my wife about diversity and inclusion stuff. You know, it's just kind of crazy world, right? You know, you never know where you're going to go with some of these things. So yeah, I'd love to get your guys a pause there and love to get your guys' thoughts.
Well, at first it makes me think of that, yeah, you didn't know what the journey was going to be, and yet you found some links at the end of it. And, you know, it's sort of like, hey, I didn't know that I was going to make some links, but yet I think the human mind like always finds some links though. You know what I mean? Like,
that's true.
It could have been, you know, so I just jumped to that conclusion. And I think that's just really neat though, that it did lead down like a path that you were interested in reading more books with Felicia. And so I'm just really, it's like I get joy just hearing about that, how it led towards enriching your relationship with Felicia or doing something together for some growth, because just like a lot of conversation is just sharing knowledge. So it's like sometimes it's neat when you read a book together because you have your own knowledge, but you're also reading some similar stuff. And just, I think the dialogue back and forth or whatever can create a neat reciprocity of learning between two people when they read the same thing.
Yeah, it is. Yes, you can certainly draw the links. I totally agree with what you're saying there. I think the important thing for me to call out would be the links are, for me, always a link back to my values, right? Like, so it was challenge myself to do this stuff. It's don't do it alone, which is, you know, not doing it by myself and doing it with my wife. And to, you know, like it makes it a lot easier to enjoy stuff that maybe I historically wouldn't have been like, yeah, I'm really excited to read a book about a gay Black woman's, you know, journey through Silicon Valley. That would have never happened before Amelia because of the compound effect of Amanda going through the core values quest. All that, it took months for her to even challenge this whole entire thing. It's just kind of crazy how it all starts to spiral in an interesting spiral as you continue to go on in life.
Yeah, and I just really like how like I really admire your core value as challenge. I think that's really cool. That's all.
Thank you. What do you got, Drew?
So it reminds me of the saying we keep saying many times in our company. It's, you know, what you see is all there is. And you and I know what that meant to us. I mean, human in a weird way, we don't see what we don't see, and we can't see past what we know. So it reminds me of how people say, don't judge a book by its cover. It's just because we would never, ever going to be looking for a book in this kind of situation or the author without Amanda telling us, hey, by the way, wake up and look over here.
Right.
And that's the thing is we don't know that we would like it by ourselves because we are not adding new blood into the mix. We would never know. And it is so great to have like new and even like opposing ideas that challenges the current status quo of whatever we know. And that's the thing. The reason why I bring up where, you know, what you see is all this, because that's what Daniel Kahneman is saying is that, you know, what you say isn't all there. There's much more than that. So it's one of those things that we need to be able to embrace the newness of anything that comes into our life. And, you know, Amanda is one of those things where, I mean, she's that kind of person that will pry into and say, hey, you know, there's an elephant in the room. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Right. Why are we circling around the elephant? And that's in your book, I can't imagine. I mean, that's essentially everybody went to the gathering was like avoiding talking about, you know, your atomic bomb. No one's asking until somebody said, look, you know, we all think about it. Why aren't we talking about it? And, you know, a lot of these things, like from that perspective, you know, even for me, like knowing Amanda through just you and company, I've learned more and more about myself and be able to add more to that layer of complexity in my life to kind of better it in a way.
Right. That's where don't do it alone comes into is so valuable, right? You know,
exactly.
I mean, like what's the point of this world if you're doing it? You know, I'm right now, I'm almost finished with this book called Into the Wild with.
John Krakauer, right?
Yeah.
I read that in the Peace Corps years ago. It's fabulous.
Yeah, no, it's a good book, but my reflection is going to be about like It's so lonely. That guy is so lonely. Don't do
Mhm.
the shit by yourself. I mean, even if you want to, there's some things you can learn by yourself, but it's just never any fun when you do it by
Yeah,
yourself.
it's much more fun if you have other people doing with you.
Yeah. No, it was a good book though. It's a good story to hear, but like, I mean, I don't want that to be my life.
Yeah, well, I think that it's back and forth because I can sometimes enjoy doing things on my own. Or I just got back from a trip where I was hiking and being by myself for almost like a whole trip, except for just meeting people on the trail or at the hostel. Even though this might be too much of a digression, but in the book I'm reading right now, that's talking about lifting people out of depression, it's like people cannot want to do things. So they're like, oh, well, I don't have anything to do something with. But he challenges people and he challenges patients to list out things and say how much you think you're going to enjoy them, and then actually rate how much you enjoyed them and rate whether you did them alone or by yourself. So maybe it was going to the movies or going to dinner, I don't know, other things. And actually when people ended up rating it, he found there was actually not like the actual satisfaction level was not necessarily in line of like what they thought, how much enjoyment they thought it would be. Yeah. So there's that, but I think it depends on the person though too.
Right. So I would never want to write with somebody else at the same time. Like I do have alone activities that I want to do by myself, but I want to share like that with somebody, right? Like the dude in Into the Wild.
It's like drinking, right? You guys drink, and you can drink alone or you can drink with people. So the thing is, when you drink with people, you're not enjoying so much of the alcoholic. You're enjoying the company you have, right? To me, like when you went to drink with somebody, it's a conversation you have. You remember that's your memory, that's your experience of that night, right? So you mean just think back of any of those events that you had with your friends, whether you went to Florida and visit your friends, Chris, right? What do you remember? Do you remember the food you ate, or the conversation and what he told you, the story he told you? So the thing is, you are your memory. What you are, what you remember. Your happiness and your fulfillment is based on what you remember. So you don't remember like, hey, I think I ate some noodles or I ate some chicken wings, whatever. It doesn't matter at that point because you're enjoying the company, you're enjoying the stories and experience that brings. Yes, there are some activities that you do alone, and there are more activities that you do with other people, and that makes it more fun. Whether that's to build a company, to go hiking together, to go surf, go swimming, it doesn't matter. I mean, you think about
but I think it could make it better, but it could also make it worse though. Because let's say you end up going to a nice Italian restaurant, the food is fabulous, but boy, your friend was a real jerk to you and kind of spoiled the night. So I think it's all kind of subjective or can go either way. And yet, like we are a fun social, we're a social species. Like we literally, I think there's like scientific proof out there, like you go insane if you are by yourself for a certain amount of time.
I talked to Chris about this. In prison, like what do they do to you when you did something really bad, like you beat up somebody and you
solitary confinement.
Exactly. And why do these tough criminals are so afraid of solitary confinement? Because it goes against our nature.
Well, I mean, but you're also like let's say like, I mean, like it's different. Let's say you're doing a backpacking trip, you're like out in nature, it's like different, there's like birds, animals. I mean, if you are in a freaking brick building, like by yourself or whatever for 2 days, like you probably go crazy after 2 days.
It's really interesting. I just finished this book called Rocket Men 2 weeks ago. It's about like the first manned spaceflight Apollo missions to the moon and like all the stories of the astronauts and everything they went through. One of the guys that designed the what the astronauts did while they were on these missions, he did this because he spent 2 days in a suit and in like a scuba diving suit underwater or whatever, and he had nothing to do, and he was like this was the most he was like, after 2 days I literally went insane. So he goes, the reason why they gave all these astronauts so many things to do while they're up there is because they're so isolated by themselves that they don't have something to do, they will literally go insane within a couple of days, and that's how they designed like what astronauts do. I was kind of blown away by that. But Snow, to your point, I think there's a disconnect a little bit of what I know exactly what you're saying. There is something about being connected in nature and like doing certain activities by yourself. I like to think when I like write, I don't do it by myself. I do it with my daughter personally. Like, and I don't think that when you go out into nature, you're not doing it by yourself. You're with the birds, you're with the, like you said, the trees.
I'm with myself, man. I'm with myself. Or whether I'm meditating, like, no, that's just me and my thoughts, you know.
I think this will be a fun topic to come back to when I get to the Into the Wild, you know, when we do this one, because it'll be a good debate. I feel like it is interesting. You know, I think at the end of the day, I think all of us know that we get more fulfillment in general. Like, you don't want to be alone forever.
No, why do you think I'm here?
Exactly.
I hate you guys. Yeah, you guys ruined my life.
Right. But anyway, all right. So circling back to the question, you know, that we can. Any other final thoughts here for you guys on Arlan Hamilton and living your compound, the compound effect of living your values in action?
Well, yeah, just go back down to the question that you have. I just want to make sure we look at that.
Oh, in what ways have you experienced the compounding effect of living your values in your own life?
Trio, I want to hear from you. Like, in what ways have you experienced the compounding effect of living your values in your own life?
I mean, basically, there's so many things that you encounter in life. Kind of like using your value as a point of reference, you get lost and you do so many different things. And a lot of times, you know, it doesn't add up to me. They always add, right? It always add, whether it's negative or positive, it always add. Where if you do something bad, right? Continue to do something bad, it's going to compound up to something huge. If you do something good, right? And so when I say bad and good, it's like, is it away from your value or closer to your value? So if you use your value, the compound fact is what you want. The compound fact will give you what you want versus what you may not want, right? And so finding your values and doing things along that value will get you to the point where there is a monumental benefit. So for example, in my case is I've done the company with Chris, I do the quest, you know. I get to the point where I enjoy a lot about talking to people about different topics, and I enjoy the learning from other people. And at the same time, I've gained tremendous knowledge. So right now, I can talk to anyone about anything in any topic, right? Because I have got so much of the knowledge, and I'll continue to add on to that foundation. And so that's the compound fact that I really like. And doing that, and it's along the value of my value of learning, and that is essentially that what I want, and I'm very happy with where I'm going, where I'm at right now.
Mm-hmm. I think that's neat, and just talk about building your knowledge, because it seems like you're someone who really likes to be in dialogue, connect with people, and so like if you have a background knowledge of a little bit, it's like you can put your little spice on it, or you can understand what people are talking about, and you can put your reflections in. It becomes, like you say, it becomes then, you know, not about each individual. It becomes about a collective conversation or coming together.
I get what you're talking about. I understand. I can put myself in your shoe and I can walk alongside you. And that's going to make a much more meaningful conversation.
Yeah. That thought makes me think about Trio. When I was in Tanzania with the Peace Corps, I pushed myself to learn the language so much, because I was like, dude, I just want to be able to connect, or especially like have humor. Like I miss having humor. If I don't know the language, there's like no humor, jokes.
Right.
And like, yeah, just connecting with people, I mean, is great. And that kind of comes back to like the solitude versus not solitude. Connecting with people is definitely like, I think whether there's chemicals that are released in our brain, I think it's serotonin or whatever. There is like pleasure that comes. And if you don't have that, like, sure, life could be okay, but it's like, you know, why not have chocolate cake every now and then? Because chocolate tastes good in terms of like connecting with people, you know, and if it's something you like and you value in. But maybe it's just like anything, though. One thing I just have realized just so much is how life really is like a balance about, you know, working on all cylinders, let's say, how we're supposed to. So in terms of just mean that maybe that's why even the astronauts have to compartmentalize in what they do, because it's like, yeah, you have to do certain things to be well balanced. I guess that almost kind of breeds my question for you guys. Is there an aspect in your guys' life right now that you feel like is not in balance?
Oh yeah. I mean, for me, like there's a big albatross, or maybe that's an albatross or whatever, in the room of 8 hours a day that I'm spending and doing something that isn't really meaningful work for me. I'm serious. I mean, I think about it all the time. I bookend my days with this stuff and the stuff that I do, writing and exercising and learning in the morning and playing tennis at night and clubbing and stuff. And all these other things bring me so much joy and happiness. And then throughout the middle of the day, yes, I could sit here and think about how I could do mental gymnastics and try to apply my values that I care about to what I do every single day. but I don't know. This isn't prison. Like, I don't have to do that. I would rather just go find something that naturally aligns to that. It would be the objective, right? And I'm working on that. That's what Drew and I have been working on for the past few years, really, is to try to figure out what is that thing that can not only unite, that we can unlock that other 8 hours of the day that I'm doing. I feel every day I'm in balance with that. It throws me through weird ass highs and lows and artificial anxiety that's created by the environment that's there. I can feel great, and then in the morning I feel great at the end of the day, and then throughout the middle of the day it's really, I'm just on a roller coaster of somebody else is doing, and I hate that. I mean,
I mean, the thing is, in life there's always different things and different forces that pulls on you, and so you have to compensate for that. Even if you, like, for me, I don't work, right? And that's great. But at the same time, I have other anxiety, but the anxiety I have is small. It's not as big, because my anxiety is people don't look at me. Right. But my anxiety is that most people don't see me as a normal person. They see me as a weirdo. And so I like, the thing is, if you don't work, well, you're not doing anything. Regardless of what you do, whether you're learning, you do taxes, like I did taxes for the past weekend. But as far as people, when they look at me, I do nothing. And that's, to me, it's a misconception that, just like, for example, the thing that I'm trying to do right now, and I told Chris on Thursday, is I am doing this because I read that. So I want to do a carnivore only diet, right? And so when you do a carnivore only diet, right, when you go to the grocery store, right, there's not a lot of stuff you can buy. And so when you're doing something that is against the grain in society, like what we do as company, is we actually going against the grain. When you do that, society is your environment, is opposite of you. So it's harder for you to kind of fit in. And that may create some frictions with people, and people may look at you weird, or may think, you're crazy, or
it's hard to go
whatever.
against.
Yes. But that's the thing. Even if you think if you're right, you still have people opposing you. Right. And that could cause an issue. That could cause a problem. But like I said, we have its pros and its cons. And nothing is 100%. So that's why you have to balance it out. The best state to be in is to be in the middle of some of these things, and not to be in the extremities.
So it almost sounds like your balance is almost finding your place within a culture that doesn't deem what you're doing as nothing, though.
Right. So my balance would be not to find a place. My balance is to affect people to accept what I do and see what I do as valuable. I'm not going to change for them. I'm going to try to change them. That's my course of action, because I like to be here. I like to be not stressed. I don't want to run for trains. If the train passes and I'm late, so be it. No big deal. And that's the way I live my life. And I find much more peace that way. Because in the past, I ran a company, right? I've hustle and bustle. I rise, grind, and repeat. And that doesn't work out. And I know that doesn't work out, right? I was very ambitious in the beginning, and that doesn't work out. So I'm doing something that's different, and I like it. I like it very much. I like not having to do things just because somebody arbitrarily state, hey, you have to be doing this at this time. Well, if you call me and I want to talk to you, I'll pick up the phone. If not, I won't. It is a convenience for me. It's not a convenience for you to summon me all the time. That's the way I think. So same thing with my time is, I like it when I have the freedom to choose what I do with my time. Once I have that, right, I'm not giving it away. Right. And so that taste of freedom feels really, really good.
It's hard to go back then.
Exactly. Because otherwise, I would go back
once you know what you want, you can't go back. Like, I mean, yes. It's like the sad thing is, I feel like here, let's. Well, I know we're getting a little long for this episode. Let's continue with this one, but we'll wrap up today's Year of Magical Learning real fast with a quick question back to anybody listening, something to reflect on. In what ways have you guys experienced the compound effect of living the values of your own life? And I'd love to drop any comments in there if you guys have any comments. And we will see you next Monday.
All right.